We're continuing our journey on factoring, and we're factoring quadratic equations in the standard form of x squared plus bx plus c. And a few moments ago, we looked at when our middle term was positive and our last term, our constant term, was also positive, and how we would factor that. And this time we're going to look about what if when b is negative, the middle term is negative, but c, the last term, is positive. And there's a pattern when we recognize that. Now in this first one, I'm going to rearrange this, but as it reads right now, it's 21 minus 22m plus m squared. And I'm just going to rearrange this thing to where it now would look like m squared minus 22m plus 21. And so I can see here that my middle term, b if you will, is negative 22, and c is positive 21. Now again, I'm going to draw my two parentheses. And my lead coefficient of my leading term, the m squared, is 1. So I can just put m, in this case, on both to the left side of both parentheses. Now, I've got a negative middle term and a positive constant term, or last term. And I know that I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 21 and add to negative 22. Now we know that if I multiply two negative numbers together, my result is a positive. And since my middle term is negative and my last term is positive, I'm going to put two negatives in the parentheses. Okay, so now I'm looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to 21 and add to negative 22. Well, this one's not too hard to figure out. 1 times 21, or negative 1 times negative 21, is going to multiply to positive 21, and negative 21 negative 22 is going to, negative 21 negative 1, negative 21 negative 1 is going to add to negative 22. And so my two factors are negative 1 and negative 21. And so we're just going to pop in negative 1 and negative 21. And shazam, we have factored it when b is a negative and c is a positive. Now I don't have to rearrange this second one. It's already written in standard form for me. And I got w squared minus 11w plus 28. And again, I'm going to draw my two parentheses for my factor of my quadratic. My coefficient of my leading term, the w squared, is 1, so I can just put a w to the left side of both parentheses. And my last term is positive 28. And my middle term is negative 11. And so I know inside my parentheses, I'm going to have a negative. Let's see if I can write that a little bit better. I'm going to have to negative. Okay. And so again, now I'm looking for two numbers that are going to multiply to 28 and add to negative 11. 28, negative 11. And knowing your multiplication tables can make your life so much easier in this regard. So, okay, well, I could go down the list. 28 times 1, or negative 1 times negative 28 is going to be positive 28, but that's going to equal, when I add those, it's going to be negative 29. And 14 and 2, negative 14, negative 2 multiply to 28, but negative 14 and negative 2 add to negative 16. But what about negative 4 and negative 7? Negative 4 and negative 7, if I multiply those together, it's going to give me positive 28. And when I add negative 4 and negative 7, it's going to be negative 11. So my two factors now are negative 4 and negative 7. And I'm just going to put in negative 4 and negative 7. And shazam, there we go. A little bit of work here when we got a quadratic expression in standard form, x squared plus bx plus c, except where b is negative and c is positive. It means we're going to have two negatives inside our parentheses, because when I multiply two negatives together, I'm going to get a positive, and when I add two negatives together, well, it's going to be negative. And so there we go. Next, we'll look at when c is negative, and we'll get our biggest clue as to what to do as to what the sign of b is. Is it positive or negative?